atrocious murder in Lindbergh's small town resulted in the passing of the anti-kidnapping law by Congress. Thousands watched as the new Lindbergh anti-kidnapping law. The American eagle stands guard. Entry to the courtroom was gained by pass only, and even a pass did not make you immune to a good frisking. The defendant entering the courtroom has an electing effect on the spectators. The air is charged with excitement. First in the foreground is George Kelly, Albert Bates, and the elusive Harvey J. Bailey. Over there, Armon. That's Armon Shannon. Next, his father. Then Ora Shannon, Kathryn Kelly's mother. And here is Kathryn Kelly.
Hear ye, United States Court for the Western District of Oklahoma is now in session.
The following scenes are based on the sworn testimony given at the trial. The home of Kathryn Kelly in Fort Worth, where no doubt the Urschel kidnap plot was first conceived. The first step was the purchase of a machine gun at this pawn shop in Fort Worth, Texas on February 20th, 1933. This is Kathryn Kelly, who, according to testimony, purchased this machine gun for $250 cash. This is the machine gun, presented as evidence by Prosecutor Hyde. The story now picks up the trail of the Kellys on July 22nd at the Stratford, Oklahoma farm of her grandparents, accompanied by Albert Bates. At the noonday meal, Kelly remarked, "There's more than likely to be a kidnapping in Oklahoma City tonight." And sure enough, Kelly was right. That night, from his home in the exclusive residential district, Charles F. Urschel, millionaire oil man of Oklahoma City, was abducted. Through this door, leading to the sun porch, where the Urschels and two friends were playing a final rubber of bridge, entered two sinister figures.
Don't move, or we'll blow your heads off. We want Urschel. Which one is Urschel? Which one is Urschel? Well then, we'll take them both. Don't say a word or go near that telephone or we'll blow your heads off.
About an hour after identifying themselves, Urschel's friend was released on a lonely road with instructions to keep his mouth shut if he wanted to help Urschel. They then blindfolded Urschel. He was told not to hear or see anything on the trip or they would kill him. About 2 hours after leaving Oklahoma City, the kidnappers arrived at this farm, where Urschel was transferred to a larger car. After Grandma Coleman demanded, "Get that kidnapped man off my farm," they departed, followed by Kathryn Kelly to clear the way at the Shannon farm near Paradise, Texas. The main street of the little town of Paradise, Texas, near where R.G. Shannon, known as Boss, on account of his political activities, had lived for more than 30 years. The trail to the Shannon farm was blazed as shown by these painted posts. The afternoon of July 23rd, the kidnappers arrived at the Shannon farm. Urschel was kept in this garage until after dark. Here you see the farm home of Armon Shannon, son of R.G. Shannon, to which Urschel was transferred Monday night. What a lonely, secluded spot this is, but the kidnappers did not reckon with the intelligence of their victim and the thoroughness of the United States Bureau of Investigation. They placed their victim in the small room at the right, where he was held captive in the manner shown. He noted the regular daily passage of an airplane. He noted that it rained on a certain day. He heard Armon Shannon's name, Potatoes. He heard the name of the rural post. These clues were followed up later by federal agents with the result that mail plane schedule indicated Paradise, Texas, which was further verified by rainfall records. Investigation in Paradise located them, and here they also learned that Armon Shannon's nickname was Potatoes. One of the clever things which Urschel did, and which later aided in the conviction of the kidnappers, was to leave his fingerprints wherever possible. Urschel was allowed to write his first communication, in which he said, "My personal funds are very low, and if the estate funds have to be touched to pay the ransom, just forget about it. Let it go. It will be all right with me." But after reading the note, the kidnappers said,
"No, that won't do. We'll tell you what we want you to write. Now write this. Dear John, you undoubtedly know about my predicament. If Arthur has returned, please deliver the enclosed letter to him, otherwise to Kirkpatrick. Deliver in person and do not communicate by telephone. Tell no one else about this letter, not even your wife, and when you deliver it, do not go to residence. Authorities must be kept off the case or release impossible, and they cannot effect rescue. For my sake, follow these instructions to the letter and do not discuss with anyone other than those mentioned. This is my final letter to any of my friends or family, and if this contact is not successful, I fear for my life. When in Oklahoma City, keep out of sight as much as possible because you will probably be used on in this capacity. I am putting all my dependence in you regarding this matter and feel sure you will take every precaution possible. Best regards, as ever, your friend, now sign it, C.F. Urschel.
In another letter, the kidnappers instructed Kirkpatrick to insert this ad in a newspaper to signify his willingness to comply with their demands. Mr. E. Kirkpatrick, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, sir. In view of the fact that you have had the ad inserted as per our instructions, we gather that you are now prepared to meet our ultimatum. $200,000 in used, genuine Federal Reserve notes of $20 denomination in a suitable light-colored leather bag, and have someone purchase transportation for you, including berth, aboard train number 28, the Sooner, which departs at 10:10 p.m. via the MK&T line for Kansas City, Missouri. You will ride on the observation platform, where you may be observed by someone at some station along the line between Oklahoma City and Kansas City, Missouri. If indications are all right, somewhere along the right-of-way, you will observe a fire on the right side of the track, facing the direction in which train is bound. That first fire will be your cue to be prepared to throw bag to track immediately after passing second fire. Mr. Urschel will, upon our instructions, attend to the fires and secure the bag when you throw it off. He will open it and transfer the contents to a sack that he will be provided with. So, if you comply with our demand and do not attempt any subterfuge, as according to news reports you have pledged, Mr. Urschel should be home in a very short while. Remember this. If any trickery is attempted, you will find the remains of Urschel, and instead of joy, there will be double grief, for someone very near and dear to the Urschel family is under constant surveillance and will likewise suffer for your errors. If there is the slightest hitch in these plans for any reason whatsoever, not your fault, you will proceed on into Kansas City, Missouri, and register at the Mulebach Hotel under the name of E.E. Kincaid of Little Rock, Arkansas, and await further instructions there. However, there should not be if you comply with these simple directions. The main thing to do, not divulge the contents of this letter to any law authorities, for we have no intention of further communication. You are to make this trip Saturday, July 29, 1933. Kirkpatrick, who delivered the $200,000 ransom July 30th in Kansas City to a man later identified as Kelly. Urschel was released at this spot near Norman, Oklahoma. Walking to this barbecue stand, he called a cab to take him home. This list of the serial numbers of the 10,000 $20 bills delivered as ransom furnished the clue which led to the arrest of the first suspects, 3 men in St. Paul, Minnesota on August 8th. Following clues obtained from the close observations of Urschel, a small army of special agents and peace officers swooped down at daybreak on August 12th on the home of R.G. Boss Shannon near Paradise, Texas, the remote and secluded hideout of the kidnappers. The net closed in on Kathryn Kelly's mother, Mrs. Ora Shannon, her husband, Boss Shannon, his son, Armon, and the notorious Harvey Bailey, who was captured while sleeping on a cot in the yard. Bailey was armed with a young arsenal, and on his person, agents found $700 of the Urschel ransom money. Bailey and the Shannons were placed in the Dallas County Jail. At this prison, the Kansas State Penitentiary, Bailey and 10 other convicts staged a sensational escape on Memorial Day. Here is the spot where Bailey and his comrades went over the wall in their dash for freedom. Bailey chose another holiday, Labor Day, to make a daring escape from the death cell in the Dallas County Jail. With the aid of a jailer and an outsider, Bailey secured saw blades and a pistol. Selecting a time when everything was favorable, he succeeded in gaining his freedom. Taking the jailer with him and forcing him to secure his car from a nearby garage, he started his mad dash. He eluded officers until he reached Ardmore, Oklahoma. There's Bailey now, getting gas. He sees the officers at the same time they spot him. Around he swings and heads in the opposite direction, with a good lead over the officers who were going 7 miles an hour. Back they come, and a thrilling chase through the busy streets of Ardmore has begun. Just 4 hours after one of the most daring breaks in the history of the Dallas County Jail, Harvey Bailey's mad flight came to a dramatic end. Crashing a wheel on a sharp turn, He was taken into custody by Ardmore officers without a struggle. The Ardmore, Oklahoma officers effected the capture of the notorious criminal. From left to right, Raymond Shoemaker, Chief Hale Dunn, and he is, again in the custody of the law, Harvey J. Bailey, America's #1 bad boy. In the meantime, at this rooming house in Denver, detectives and federal agents captured Albert Bates, identified by the Urschels as one of the abductors. The testimony showed that Bates lived at these apartment houses under the names of George L. Davis and Leo Felton, and from here he communicated with Kelly. George and Kathryn Kelly, in their wild dash from state to state, city to city, paused long enough in Chicago to pen a couple of letters. This letter, threatening murder of death to Urschel and his family if the Shannons were convicted, was signed with Kelly's fingerprint. Here's the home of J.R. Tishner in Memphis, Tennessee, where Machine Gun Kelly and his wife were captured by a heavily armed squadron of police and federal agents. Detective Sergeant William Rainey, who risked a barrage of machine gun bullets when he knocked on the door of Kelly and captured the most wanted man in America. And here they are, George and Kathryn, at the showdown, an unbeatable pair, until they were called by the aces of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Following close on the heels of the capture of the Kellys in Memphis, federal and local officers acting upon a tip made a midnight visit, September 26th, to the farm of Cass Coleman. Visited by Cass Coleman, agents proceeded to this old well in the middle of a cotton patch, where they recovered $73,250 of the Urschel ransom money. Kelly and Coleman had buried a few days previous. It took them an hour to count it. The money was too hot for Kelly to handle. I wonder how he expected it to cool off in a thermos jug. Here comes Charles F. Urschel, the victim of the world's most astounding kidnap plot. He takes a seat beside his wife. His extreme courage in the face of threats of death is America's challenge to gangland. The trial is over, and the jury has reached a verdict. Thus, Uncle Sam rolled up his sleeves and dealt gangland a swift, decisive blow. Judge Edgar S. Boggs.
The defendants, Albert R. Bates, Harvey J. Bailey, Harvey Shannon, Ora Shannon, Armon Shannon, Edward Berman, and Clifford Kelly will please stand. Now, in this case, the jury has returned a verdict of guilty. The court is of the opinion that this verdict is fully sustained by the evidence. And while it is not a pleasant duty for a court, even in the face of a verdict of guilty, to impose a sentence that deprives one of his liberty, yet there are times when duty requires that one assume the full responsibility of his office. There are some things that I might call to your attention this morning. Something is more at stake in the trial of this case than the mere punishment. No smoking in the courtroom, please. Something is more at stake than the mere punishment for the crime that's been committed in this case. The question before the American people today is whether or not crime will be recognized as an occupation or a profession, or whether the people will enforce the laws of this nation as they are written. So far as this court is concerned, it's his purpose to try to enforce the laws as they are written. Therefore, the judgment of this court that Albert L. Bates be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for the term of his natural life. It's the judgment of this court that Harvey J. Bailey be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for the term of his natural life. It's the judgment of this court that R.G. Shannon be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for the term of his natural life. Judgment of this court that Ora Shannon be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for the term of her natural life. It's the judgment of this court that Armon Shannon be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for a period of 10 years. But that sentence will be suspended during good behavior. and you will be paroled to Mr. Birch, the attorney, one of the attorneys who represented you. And he, for 10 years, will make a report to this court once every 6 months as to your conduct. If your conduct is what it should be, and you violate no laws, either state or federal, this parole will be considered. Otherwise, you're in the jurisdiction of this court, and you may be called in to serve this sentence at such time as the court may direct. I may say in this respect that the government of the United States, through the district attorney and through the representatives of the Attorney General's office, have made repeated requests that the court extend leniency to you. Might further add that this request has been made by every member of the jury that found you guilty. As to the defendants Edward Berman and Clifford Skelly, you are each sentenced to serve a term of 5 years in the federal penitentiary. Execution as to R.G. Shannon will be stayed for a period of 60 days upon the execution of a bond satisfactory to this court in the sum of $10,000.
Even in the face of almost certain conviction, Kelly maintained his air of braggadocio and nonchalance. This was considerably disturbed, however, by a severe pistol whipping which he received at the hands of one of the federal guards. After starting something he couldn't finish, he was warned that at any further show of violence he would be shot. This warning evidently had the desired effect, because George was very respectful of the federal officers for the balance of the trial. Look at the knot on his head. He has another one on the back, and his yellow-dyed hair was streaked with his own blood as he appeared in court, a wiser and a more subdued man.
It's the judgment of the court that George R. Kelly be sentenced to the federal penitentiary for the term of his natural life.
Now we introduce the nation's youngest United States District Attorney, Herbert K. Hyde, of the Western District of Oklahoma.
I have been requested to say a few words in connection with the Urschel kidnap trial held here in Oklahoma City, the Western District of Oklahoma. 76 days ago, Charles Urschel, one of our prominent citizens of Oklahoma City, was abducted and kidnapped from his home. Today, 7 people were sentenced to the penitentiary for the commission of this crime. This should serve as a notice to those who would violate and set aside our federal laws that no individual or group of individuals is more powerful than the federal government.
Now it's all over. These people who became famous, or rather infamous, overnight will soon be forgotten by the world and will spend the rest of their lives within the grim gray walls of prison. Sirens scream and an armored car bends. They are going for ride, and with the federal government at the wheel. And here's the end of the road, and oblivion, the inevitable destination of the lure of easy money.